Hi everyone, it's Dave. Welcome back to another video. Welcome back to Wilde Reads. It's time for another wrap up, everybody. This year is going so fast. I cannot believe that I'm already wrapping up May's reading. Now, May's reading went really well. In fact, May was the first time I did a monthly TBR, and I pretty much stuck to it fairly rigidly. There's only one, I think there was only one excursion away from the TBR, but it really worked for me and it really put some structure in place for my reading, which I really needed, because whimsical reading is all right for me personally. I know it works for everyone differently, but for me personally, I needed a bit of structure and I really enjoyed it, and I had a really good reading month. So I read 7, I think I read 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes, I read 7. Did a buddy read as well. I've got another couple of buddy reads this month. And there was one which I started again and didn't quite finish. So we'll do that sort of honorary mention at the end. Let's crack on with the books that I read. I'm not doing the book lean. I've just got a cup of tea here. Do you like the new Van Gogh mug, cup and saucer? Vicky bought me this. So let's talk about the books that I read in the month of May. The first one was, there's going to be some classic shaming straight up front here. I had never read Harper To Kill a Mockingbird. Well, I don't think I'd ever read it. I may have read it way back in school, but we are talking a lot of years ago now, at least sort of 3.5 decades. To Kill a Mockingbird. Now, I've got this 50th anniversary edition, which is a tiny little paperback, which does make the text and the font quite small. It's quite sort of, I don't know if you can see that with the lighting, but it's quite text dense. And I don't usually like these little pocket size paperbacks. I prefer the more, you know, the more general size paperbacks, or even a trade paperback. But anyway, I'm digressing. I've got the book in this format, so I read it in this format. I loved it. I loved the story. I am a little bit nervous about reading the follow-up, if indeed it is a follow-up, Go Set a Watchman by Harper Lee, which came out a few years ago. I've got that on the hardback shelves over there, and apparently it's I've heard it's not as good. I love this story. I love the characters in it. Atticus. I know it's a classic, and there won't be many of you watching this that haven't read it, but I can now tick this off of my classic list, so I will no longer be shamed by not having read To Kill a Mockingbird. I did find it, reading it in 2018, I did find some of the racist language in this book a bit like, oh, you know, I don't know whether this book would get away with being quite so heavily racist had it been written in this day and age. But obviously it's of its time. But it's a very strong story, and the characters in the book will live with me for a very long time. So if you haven't read, if you've been putting off, like me, to reading To Kill a Mockingbird, put it off no longer. Just pick it up and read it. It's a very good story. As I say, it will stay with me for a real long time. So I enjoyed that. Talking about small paperbacks, you may have seen from one of my wrap-ups that I have recently picked up quite a large collection of Paul Auster books. So I read one of them. This was Travels in the Scriptorium, which has got a really sort of moody looking cover. Look at that. It's really nice. Some of the covers I've seen, it's got a white horse in this room standing by this bed, but my one hasn't. I think, looking back, I did like this book, but it's one for the Paul Auster fans. If you've read more of his work, this book, it's a strange book. It's a strange tale, and it concerns a man in a scriptorium, which is like a room set aside for reading and writing predominantly. But it turns out it's some kind of asylum, and this man is nameless. He's called Mr. Blank, which is, in fact, it's Paul Auster. You know, Mr. Blank is Paul Auster, and the other characters in the book that he introduces are all characters that have been introduced in Paul Auster's previous works. And the characters talk about Mr. Blank sending them out on a mission. So at first I'm thinking, okay, Mr. Blank is some kind of ex-Secret Service boss who sent these people out on missions all over the world, dangerous missions and what have you. But it turns out that Mr. Blank is indeed the author, and the characters in the book are characters that he's sent out on missions, because I haven't read a lot of Paul Auster's work. I've got a lot of them now. So I think that if you're going to read this one, it might be in your interest to read some of his works before, because the characters are reoccurring. But having come to it, so I'm come from it from the other way, in not having read about his other characters or not having read his other books, and I've come to it, this story probably means something different to me than it would do if you've read his previous work. But having said that, it's an enjoyable read. It was a one-sitter. It was a one-sitting read for me. But yeah, I enjoyed it. So Paul Auster, Travels in the Scriptorium. This is a nice little, really thin Faber, one-sitting read, paperback. The next one I've got here is the first one I read in the month, and I took this up to Yorkshire with me. Rachel Joyce, The Music Shop. This is a lovely, lovely book. Rachel Joyce's writing is that if you've read any other books of Rachel Joyce, i.e. The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, or the one that came after, I think it was The Love Song of Queenie Hennessy, or indeed Perfect, which she wrote, you instantly feel at home with. Rachel Joyce has a very unique style, and it just instantly makes you feel at home with her writing. This was a great book. It's about a guy called Frank who owns a music shop. He is set in the 1980s, and he's very stubbornly refusing to stock CDs. He wants to keep vinyl alive, where all the other music shops are stocking CDs and growing their businesses, and Frank's business is built solidly on selling vinyl. It's got so many references to popular music in this book. You find yourself stopping every sort of 10-15 minutes to either Google a song that's mentioned or Google a reference, but it doesn't spoil the enjoyment of the book. It's a really, really cosy little tale of Frank, and he meets this woman who faints outside of his shop. It's a brilliant book. I love the writing of Rachel Joyce, so that's recommended. Rachel Joyce, The Music Shop. What did I read after that? Let's go to my buddy read. So I buddy read the next book, which is Ordinary People by Dianna Evans. I buddy read this with Kerry Ann from Woman vs. Books and Emma from Emma's Bookish Lifestyle. So we buddy read this. I've not done too many buddy reads since I've been on BookTube. This was only my second, I think. This one went a lot better than the first one, and I really enjoyed my buddy reading time with the two girls. It was a lot of fun. We kept in touch via the go-to buddy reading app on BookTube, which is Voxer. It was a really good book. Apart from the ending left me a bit. Ordinary People is, as the title suggests, it's a book about ordinariness. It's about two couples living in South East London, the Crystal Palace area. They are just two ordinary couples, and what I've mentioned during the week was that I think it's very hard to write a compelling fictional narrative and keep the reader interested when you're just reading about ordinary people. I think it's an extremely hard thing to do. It's just hard to keep the reader interested when you're just writing about ordinary people and ordinary things and ordinary lives. I think it's an incredibly hard thing to A, hook the reader, and then keep them hooked, to keep you turning the pages. Dianna Evans pulls this off magnificently, and it isn't until the last couple of chapters she introduces a sort of supernatural element to the book, which it's really well written, but it doesn't fit the rest of the book. And me and the girls were thinking, is this a metaphor for something else? But it seems like the editor, Dianna Evans' editor, has said to her, look, it's brilliantly written, it's about ordinary people, but just put something in to spice it up a bit. And the ending just didn't work for me. It fell away completely at the end. So I think we gave this 3 stars. I think all 3 of us gave it 3 stars. It's very well written. I think if you're going to write a book about ordinary people, just keep it about ordinary people. There's no need to add a bit of spice to the story at the end. But yeah, overall an enjoyable read and a very, very good time buddy reading it with Emma and Kerry Ann. The next book I read was The Smiling Man by Joseph Knox. I'm familiar with Joseph Knox because I read Sirens of his last year, which ended up as one of my books of the year. He's a brilliant writer. Joseph Knox is the pen name of Joseph Nobbs, who was, until very recently, the crime buyer for Waterstones bookshop chain here in England. He's since given up that post now, since publishing this. Joseph Knox, as his pen name is now a full-time writer, and that's brilliant news for us fans of his, because his writing is superb. The books are set in Manchester, and it concerns the fictional detective Aidan Waits. Now, Aidan Waits is a sort of anti-hero, really. He's a serving police officer, but he's really gone through the ringer, and he finds himself stationed on permanent night shift with his partner Peter Sutcliffe. Yes, Peter Sutcliffe. For those of a certain age, you will know, Google the name Peter Sutcliffe. We won't go into that now. Yeah, so Aidan Waits is on night shift because he's had a drug problem. He's stolen from evidence in the past. I don't know why he's really still got a job, but he has, and he's a really, really good detective. Wears his heart on his sleeve. This book delves a little deeper into which Sirens didn't so much. This book delves a little deeper into Aidan's past, and he's really had a horrible past, which probably accounts for some of his more reckless behaviour now. It's a brilliant series, this, and this is only the second book in the series, and hopefully it will go on for many, many more books. Joseph Knox is a very atmospheric writer. He's very gritty. You get a real sense of urban decay in his books, and yeah, it's very, very enjoyable read, very quick read. It really it's very, very well paced as well. So it really does make you turn the pages. So if you're looking for a gritty thriller, I would start with Sirens, but then move quickly on to the Smiling Man. So yeah, that's recommended. The Smiling Man by Joseph Knox. This is published by Doubleday, and it's been out about a month or so now, a couple of months now. The next book I read, this was my so Smiling Man was my sort of crime thriller pick. My non-fiction pick was This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. Utterly fantastic book. Adam Kay was a junior doctor in the NHS in England. For those of you watching this abroad, we pay our national insurance contributions, and we get free NHS care at the point of delivery. Now, I'm not going to get all political now and go on about the NHS, but this book really does bring it home how wonderful the people that work in the NHS truly are life-saving angels. The pressure that Adam Kay talks about in this book, the lack of sleep, the crappy money that they're on, all to save lives and work for our behalf. It's an incredible story, and this is one of the funniest non-fiction books or fiction books or any kind of book. This book literally, and viewers of this channel will know that I don't laugh readily at books. I find it very hard to find a lot of humour in books. This is one of the funniest things I have ever read, until the last two chapters when it does get a bit bleaker. Adam Kay ended up resigning from the NHS and giving up his post as a junior doctor because of some of the things that happen within this book. But for the majority of the book, I've never laughed so much and never laughed out loud so much. I was genuinely lolling with this book. It's so funny. Some of the accounts of medical mishaps and medical misfortune are some of the funniest things I've ever read in print. This book will leave an indelible stain on my memory. Adam Kay's now a writer. I think he's now a writer for TV and screenplay. It's a very good book, and this book has sold masses. It's been in the non-fiction chart for a long time now. This is so well recommended. It's a brilliant book. Yes, This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay, published by Picador. And the last one I've got, apart from my little honorary mention at the end, the last one I've got I finished yesterday. This is A Place Called Winter by Patrick Gale. Again, I love the writing of Patrick Gale. He is just so readable. It's a brilliant book. This concerns a guy called Harry Kane, not the footballer Harry Kane, the fictional character Harry, this must be Harry here on the cover, who has to leave England. This is set in Edwardian times, so just before the outbreak of the First World War. Harry has to leave England, and he has to leave his wife, he has to leave his young daughter, because of a scandal that breaks. The scandal is that he's had gay affair, and he's about to be outed by force, which obviously back then was a huge disgrace. Disgracefully, it was a huge disgrace back then, because people couldn't live in this time as they wanted to. It really did matter who you went to bed with in these, and you know, we're not talking about hundreds of years ago, we're talking about relatively recent history, which, you know, nowadays you would find disgraceful, it being a disgrace in the first place. But anyway, it was, and we all know it was. And we all know of the terrible hardship that the LGBT community, as it was then, had to endure because of small-mindedness and bigotry, and, you know, all kinds of horrible things went on. So Harry, our character, finds himself having to take up a homestead in the then burgeoning land of Canada. And it's really difficult to describe what happens to him without giving too much away, but this was a pick from my 5-star prediction list. It didn't quite get to 5 stars for me. I gave it a 4 in the end. It's a lovely tale, and it just reminds me that I really need to read more Patrick Gale, because he has, I do have another Patrick Gale here on the shelf to read, which is A Perfectly Good Man, that I will get to in the coming months. But I love Patrick Gale's style. I read notes from an exhibition last year, which I enjoyed immensely. Patrick Gale has just got this, again, this very readable style about him. This is a really good book. So another Wilde Reads recommends. That's A Place Called Winter, from Patrick Gale. This one's published by Tinder Press. Patrick Gale's got another book out this year, in the next couple of months or so look out for that one, because I will be highlighting it in one of my 6 books to look out for videos. Should I do my honorary mention thus far? Right, okay, I've tried to read this book twice now, and it's just not agreeing with me. It's Jesmyn Ward, Sing Unburied Sing. I've got it on audio books. A couple of months ago I tried to read this copy of it. I've got this lovely hardback, and I couldn't really get into it, and I thought it was because I was suffering from a book hangover. So I thought, okay, because a lot of this book is dialectal, it's got a lot of dialect in this book, I thought I'll get it on audiobook. So I got it on Audible, and I find the writing beautiful. It's very poetic. So there's nothing wrong with the writing style. I just can't connect with the characters. I can't connect with Jojo. I can't connect with the characters at all. And I think it might be me. I don't think there's anything wrong with the writing. I just find it, I do struggle with books. If I can't connect with the characters, then I get this sort of disassociation with the book. It's just not working for me. So I'm not going to officially DNF it, because I'm going to give it another go. So 3rd time lucky. I am struggling with it at the moment. So I'm going to put it down. I'm going to put it aside, leave it for a couple of months and come back to it. There's something that's not quite working for me at the moment with this book, which disappoints me, because I know it's a very popular book, and I know a lot of people like it. It's just not, I want it to work for me, and at the moment it isn't. So let me know in the comments if you found that. I do find it quite frustrating. But there you go. That was my wrap up, everyone, for the month of May. Hope you enjoyed that. I'll be back on, when's this going out? I'm not sure yet when this is going out. But I'll be back very soon with another video. So whatever you are doing this week, enjoy your books. And I'll see you very soon for another BookTube video. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.